Okay. So for the longest time, they said Final Fantasy couldn't come to Xbox. They said it was impossible to come to Xbox, and people shouldn't be asking for it, and they should just buy a PlayStation. Or a PC for that matter, because they eventually always come to PC. Like we're seeing with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Rebirth is going to be there after 3 months. We're going to see 16 going over to PC. But it seems there's news of Final Fantasy 16 getting ported over to Xbox, and particularly the consoles. Not just a PC Game Pass, but it's actually getting ported over to the consoles. Now I suspect that the actual Series S will run this pretty much on par with the PlayStation, but it's going to lock it at 30 FPS, which will probably be better for the game anyway, considering how flamboyant the frame rate was going up and down like a yo-yo on the PS5, where it simply couldn't maintain a 60 FPS or even a 40 FPS at this point. It was flying all over the place, pretty much giving me motion sickness. But with the extra power of the Xbox Series X, we should hopefully be seeing a stable 60 FPS. Plus, now that developers are actually getting to know the hardware, getting to know the ins and outs, and utilizing the tools like we've seen with Alan Wake and a few other games, hopefully that will push developers to start utilizing the Series X, because for the longest time, they simply haven't been using the tools. I mean, we've seen this before, back with the Mega Drive, with the blast processing. It was there, but not a single game out of its whole library used it. So now that we're seeing developers actually utilizing the Series X's capabilities, this is why Phil Spencer turned around and said that there really isn't a need for mid-gen. The simple fact is the potential for this hardware just hasn't been used. And when Digital Foundry did a comparison between the GPU wattage usage, the Xbox Series X was generally roughly about 40 to 50% lower in wattage usage than the PS5, meaning that there was so much more headroom there for them to actually push the graphical fidelity and hardware. But obviously, due to the parity clause that Sony has in place, being the market leader, and this was the case during the 360 days when it was reversed with Xbox, but due to the silly parity clause that's in place by either of them, which should be abolished because we as consumers are paying money, a lot of money for these consoles, even if it is £500, and being, restricted on their output is stupid. So that shouldn't be a thing, and this should be something that the Fair Trade Commission, the CMA, should actually be stepping in and blocking, because that is anti-competitive conduct. You're basically handicapping your competitor because they have better hardware than you. As you can see here, Clue is saying, breaking news, Special Nick revealed that Final Fantasy XVI will be coming to Xbox Series XS. Same source that revealed Visions of Mana presence at the Xbox Developer Direct. And here is what he had to say. So let's just have a listen.
Sony seems to not want to let that go. 16 was the game I was fucking talking about last week.
Really?
John had to open his big yap and be like, gonna set the internet on fire. I'm like, oh god.
So that's the mystery game you were talking about.
Yes, I was talking about Final Fantasy 16. I got the DM and they were like, if you want something for the rumor mill, Final Fantasy 16 is getting an Xbox port. And I'm like, I don't want to touch that. I don't want to touch that. I don't want to talk about it. And
did they get?
And then I was like, and
they give you a date?
Well, no, they did not give me a date.
Yeah, so look like
Final Fantasy.
So as you can see, Final Fantasy 16 apparently is in development for Xbox Series consoles. It is coming to Xbox, and it should hopefully be a much better performing game. Now, for those of you that have been waiting or on the fence, Final Fantasy 16 is actually a pretty good game. The only issue I have with it at the moment is the fact that the performance on the game is dog poo. It really is just bad. If you can play it at the high fidelity, locked at 30 FPS, that's great. The fights in the game are all locked to 60 FPS. That's awesome. But anything around the game that's exploring or just running to towns, the frame rate will just jump up and down all over the place. And when I say fights in the game, I don't mean the outworld combat. I'm talking about arena-based combat. Those are all at 60 FPS. But the fact that Final Fantasy 16 is now heavily rumored to be coming to Xbox, I mean, this is still a rumor at the end of the day. It's not confirmed. But, for the longest time, these PlayStation fans have been running rampant with rumors, so now it's time for us to do exactly the same. Of course, there is also rumors that with Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy 7 Remake is also on its way. Now, for those that have been looking forward to this, I do recommend you pick it up. It would be... I don't think they'll be on Game Pass, honestly, but if they do come to the series consoles, as long as there is a physical copy of the game, I'll buy it. If it's just going to be digital, then I'll have to consider it. I do want to... I know Microsoft has now been heavily pushing to that all-digital future, and, we've seen where they're turning around to stores and telling them to remove games off the shelves now, and I think that's a bit, it's a bit too soon, if you ask me. But they've been pushing this for a long time, and I can see their next console being a digital-only console. That said, though, I would like a physical version of Final Fantasy 16, even if there is just, you can buy it only from the Square Enix store itself, and if they release any of the other Final Fantasy games on there, because at this point you can pretty much, I know you can't get Pixel Remaster, but I'm sure it will be available on there at some point, so you could essentially just buy all the Final Fantasies on one platform and be happy as an Xbox gamer, and hopefully going forward that will thing. Obviously, if you're concerned about backwards compatibility, then digital is going to be the way you do this. But, all things being equal, Final Fantasy 16 coming to the Series X, which they said would be impossible, it would never happen. Apparently, it's happening. And the same rumors that have been going around are now saying that 7, which, to be fair, have been going around for a very long time, but 7 is also now being ported over to Xbox as well. Obviously, Rebirth will take some more time, but this is great news. Now, what does this mean for Final Fantasy 17? Will that be day and date for Xbox? Who knows? But if it is day and date for Xbox, that will be a huge, huge win for the console platform and for the people that actually are Final Fantasy fans and want to play the games. Well, I mean, that is pretty amazing news if you ask me. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really happy with this news. Well, this is another game or franchise that, Sony is losing its grasps on. And as we can see and as we can tell, the reality is if the game was selling phenomenally well on the PlayStation and it didn't need additional support, these ports would not be coming. It's clear that Square Enix is not happy with the performance of the PlayStation when it comes to the game sales. And it's clear that those, the gamers just aren't buying enough. 3 million units for 50 million consoles isn't much, and that was over the first 3 days, and then sales of the game dropped sharply by about 90 to 95%, and they've never recovered. Obviously, those that really wanted the game will have bought it. Now, how many will sell on the series consoles? Who knows? But I'm hoping for those that have genuinely wanted these games on the platform, they will go out and support the game, and if it is ported over, you'll buy it. Well, anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that discussion, and I'll see you in the next one. Remain legend.